Hello and welcome once again to CanonBlogger.com. My name is Jason Anderson, your host, and I'm doing this quick video tutorial to show you how to set up auto bracketing for HDR images using the Canon EOS 40D. This is my main camera body. Most Canon cameras will have a menu set similar to this, but because this is my main one, I'm going to go ahead and use this one. And basically what I'm going to be doing here is showing you how to configure your camera to auto bracket exposures for you so that you don't have to do things manually yourself. What I'm shooting with right now, I've got a Sigma 70mm macro that goes down to f2.8. This is a fantastic lens. This is great for macro work. It's also great for portrait work. But what I'm going to do now, and the reason why I chose this one is because it is one of my faster lenses. This goes down to f2.8, so that's why I chose this one. So I'm just going to go ahead and jump right in here, and I'm going to take you to the scroll wheel. Oops, and I'm going to point out to you that I have things set in shutter priority, which is the TV mode, which means as I adjust my scroll wheel, that is going to adjust the shutter speed for me as I move the exposure up and down. And you'll notice that as I adjust the exposure, it's only adjusting the shutter speed, and the camera is adjusting the aperture for me up and down. So, and I also want to point out here that I am on a very high ISO setting right now. I have it on the highest ISO setting primarily because I am doing some night photography here, and the low internal light is not the best for doing this kind of thing, so that's why I have that ISO setting set so high so you can actually get a rough idea. So once you have things set on shutter priority, which is TV, and you have the display showing the correct ISO setting over here for you. Let me get that in focus. You have the ISO setting where you want it. You're shooting with a full battery, and I'm already in auto bracketing mode, so I'm going to go ahead and get out of that, and I'll also show you how to get in at the same time. But what you want to do is you want to go to the back of your camera and press the menu button, and let me go ahead and get this in focus so you can see what's going on. So from the menu button, and I'm going to be using the scroll wheel up here to adjust my menu settings. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll over to the second one in, and you notice right there it says auto exposure bracketing, and you see those dots going across there where it has it centered, and it has another one at -2 and another one at +2. Basically what I did is I used this back center button and scroll wheel to adjust that. So I press the button to get into the setting entry, and I'm going to scroll my wheel to the left to move things in to where there's no auto exposure bracketing, or you can scroll it out to the right to where you can have auto bracketing go out up to 2 stops difference, but from the proper exposure controls. And right now it's at 0, so if you want it set to take 3 shots, one with correct exposure, 1/3 over, 1/3 under, 2/3 over, 2/3 under, a full stop over, and a full stop under, all the way out to 2 stops over and 2 stops under the middle exposure setting right there. You can set it to your own preferences however you wish. I usually prefer to set them at 1 over and 1 under. So with that set, you will notice on the top that it's actually showing you that you have the exposure settings pre-configured right there, and the camera is going to know to take the next frame. It's going to take the 3 frames in sequence at the exposure setting that you set. So right here my proper exposure is going to be f2, excuse me, a shutter speed setting of 1/20th, and it's got the aperture at f9. I'm going to go ahead and turn the autofocus off so we don't keep hearing that, and I just did that over on the lens right there just so we don't keep getting the focal adjustment going on the lens, so we can concentrate here. But you'll notice that I have my first exposure is going to be set at a ISO setting of high with a shutter speed setting of 1/20th of a second, and it's got the aperture set to f10. So that's what the proper exposure is for this scene according to the camera, and I'm just taking a picture of the ceiling here, so it's not going to be anything glamorous. But I'm going to go ahead and take my first frame, and then it's saying I'm still in auto exposure bracketing mode. I'm ready to take the second shot. So you go ahead and press that under, and you notice how it kept the shutter speed at 1/20th, and it's changing the aperture to 1/14th. And then for the last one, it's going to change it's going to keep the shutter speed at 1/20th, and it's changing the aperture setting to f7.1 to take the picture. Boom, and it's done doing the auto bracketing. So, and I'll show you the pictures back here, which are very boring. That's how you can have the camera do it for you. Now let me go ahead and take the auto exposure bracketing off. So I'm going to scroll that into 0. And then I'm going to do it myself manually. And when you do it manually, basically what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to look at whatever the center setting is for correct exposure, which you see, you can tell by the line right there. And as you move the shutter speed up and down, you can tell that it's changing your aperture setting accordingly. So if you want your exposure to start with f8, because that's going to be the center, just remember that it's going to be 3 steps over, 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3 will be center, then another 1, 2, 3 the opposite way will be 1 step under. It's probably better to actually do this, oops, I just pressed the button there. It's probably actually better to do this in manual mode. So I'm going to switch this over to manual mode right here so you can actually see what's going on. So a proper exposure shows me with a shutter speed of 1/4 of a second and an aperture setting of 6.3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the aperture to, I'll just start with 1/100th of a second, and when I press my shutter speed down, it says I'm way underexposed. I need to adjust the aperture to get things up. So right there you can see the proper exposure for this scene according to the camera has a shutter of 1/100th of a second and an aperture of f4. So if I want to do it manually with an ISO setting of high, or 3200 for this camera. So if I want to do this manually, I would take my first frame there, and then the next frame that I take, I would want to take 1 stop under. So I'll move down 3 because I'm doing it in 3rd stop increments. Actually, I went the wrong way. I went 1 stop over. So I'll take that picture, and then I'll go 1 stop. I'll go 1 more, 1, 2, 3, and that'll be 2 stops over. And you can see the shutter speed moving. Then I'll go the opposite direction, take the same scene, and I'm just scrolling that wheel until it shows 1 stop under, take another picture, and then 2 stops under. And that's going to give me 5 different pictures. 1, 2 steps under correct exposure, 1 step under correct exposure, 1 over, and 2 over. But basically that's how you capture HDR images, is by taking the same scene and with only changing 1 setting. And typically you want to do this with the shutter priority, or excuse me, with the shutter speed. You want to change that exposure value so it starts at center, goes 1 stop over, and then 2 stops over, then 1 stop under, and 2 stops under. And what a lot of people do that use this manual method is they will actually start at 2 stops under, and they'll take the picture there, and then they'll move it up to 1 stop under, take that picture, move it dead center, take that picture, 1 stop over, take that picture, and then 1 stop over and take that picture. So that way you only have to move in 1 direction, so you don't have to go center, 1 over, 1 under, 2 over, and then 2 under. Because to do that, let me show you what's going on. If you do that, you're constantly scrolling back and forth. So you'll start center, and then to go 1 over, you would do that, and then you go the opposite way to go 1 under, and the opposite way to go 2 over, and then the opposite way to go 2 under. And a lot of people just like saying, you know what, I'll start 2 stops under, and then I'll just go 3, 1, 2, 3 to go center, 1, 2, 3 to go 1 over, 1, 2, 3 to go 2 over. So you're always scrolling in just 1 direction rather than scrolling back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So that is how you can take multiple exposures, and I keep on hitting my back button, I gotta stop doing that. That's how I take multiple exposures to capture a bracketed range of exposure values, or to do auto bracketing when you're trying to capture HDR images. That's it for this week. If anyone has any questions, comments, or complaints, or thoughts that they would like to share with me over on the blog, please feel free to do so. The comment sections as always remain open, and you can contact me also via email. The address as always is jason@canonblogger.com. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Bye.